OT3 tells the Scientologist to locate body thetans and release them from the effects of Incident 1 and Incident 2 by auditing them. This is accomplished in solo auditing, where the Scientologist holds both cans of an e-meter in one hand and asks questions as an auditor. The Scientologist is directed to find a cluster of body thetans, address it telepathically as a cluster and take first the cluster then each individual member of the cluster through Incident 2, then Incident 1 if needed. Hubbard warns that this is a painstaking procedure, and that OT level 4 to 7 are necessary to continue the long process of dealing with one's body thetans. The Church has objected to the Xenu story being used to paint Scientology as a mere science fiction fantasy. Hubbard's statements concerning the R6 implant have been a source of contention. Critics and some Christians state that Hubbard's statements regarding R6 prove that Scientology doctrine is incompatible with Christianity, despite the Church's statements to the contrary. In Assists, Hubbard says, "Every human is then shown to have been crucified, so don't think that it's an accident that this crucifixion, they found out that this applied. Somebody somewhere on this planet, back about 600 BC, found some pieces of R6, and I don't know how they found it, either by watching Mad Men or something, but since that time they have used it and it became what is known as Christianity. The man on the cross. There was no Christ. But the man on the cross is shown as everyman." Hubbard wrote OT3 inches late 1966 and early 1967 inches North Africa while on his way to Las Palmas to join the Xenu, the first vessel of his private Scientology fleet, the Sea Org. OT3 says, "In December 1967 I knew someone had to take the plunge, but the material was publicized well before this." He emphasized later that OT3 was his own personal discovery. Critics of Scientology have suggested that other factors may have been at work. In a letter of the time to his wife Mary Sue, Hubbard said that, in order to assist his research, he was drinking alcohol and taking stimulants and depressants. "I'm drinking lots of rum and popping pinks and grays." His assistant at the time, Virginia Downsborough, said that she had to wean him off the diet of drugs to which he had become accustomed. Russell Miller posits in Barefaced Messiah that it was important for Hubbard to be found in a debilitated condition, so as to present OT3 as a research accomplishment of immense magnitude. Elements of the Xenu story appeared in Scientology before OT3. Hubbard's descriptions of extraterrestrial conflicts were put forward as early as 1950 inches his book Have You Lived Before This Life? And were enthusiastically endorsed by Scientologists who documented their past lives on other planets. The 1968 and subsequent reprints of Dianetics have had covers depicting an exploding volcano, which is reportedly a reference to OT3. In a 1968 lecture, and in instructions to his marketing staff, Hubbard explained that these images would key in the submerged memories of Incident 1 and impel people to buy the books. A special book mission was sent out to promote these books, now empowered and made irresistible by the addition of these overwhelming symbols or images. Organization staff were assured that if they simply held up one of the books, revealing its cover, that any bookstore owner would immediately order crate loads of them. A customs officer, seeing any of the book covers in one's luggage, would immediately pass one on through. Ben Corden, L. Ron Hubbard. Messiah or Madman? Since the 1980s, the volcano has also been depicted in television commercials advertising Dianetics. Scientology's Sea Org, an elite group within the Church that originated with Hubbard's personal staff aboard his fleet of ships, takes many of its symbols from the story of Xenu and OT3. It is explicitly intended to be a revival of the loyal officers who overthrew Xenu. Its logo, a wreath with 26 leaves, represents the 26 stars of Xenu's Galactic Confederacy. According to an official Scientology dictionary, the Sea Org symbol, adopted and used as the symbol of a galactic confederacy far back in the history of this sector, derives much of its power and authority from that association. In the advanced orgs in Edinburgh and Los Angeles, Scientology staff were at one time ordered to wear all-white uniforms with silver boots, to mimic Xenu's galactic patrol as depicted on the cover of Dianetics. The evolution of a science. This was reportedly done on the basis of Hubbard's declaration in his Flag Order 652 that mankind would accept regulation from that group which had last betrayed it, hence the imitation of Xenu's henchmen. This was almost certainly a misinterpretation of what Hubbard meant. He was most likely referring to psychiatrists, whom he believed had played a key role in Xenu's crimes. In Los Angeles, a night watch was ordered to watch for returning spaceships. These measures were discarded after a time. The manuscript of OT3 contains the only known example of Xenu's name in Hubbard's handwriting. The name has been spelled both as Xenu and Xenu. The Class 8 course material includes a 3-page text, handwritten by Hubbard, headed Data, in which the Xenu story is given in detail. Hubbard's indistinct handwriting makes either spelling possible, particularly as the use of the name on the first page of OT3 is the only known example of a name in his handwriting. In the Assists lecture, Hubbard speaks of Xenu, R. Yet it could be spelled Xemu and clearly says Xenu several times on the recording. The treatment of Revolt in the Stars, which is typewritten, uses Xenu exclusively. In its public statements, the Church of Scientology has been notably reluctant to allow even a public mention of Xenu. A passing mention by a trial judge in 1997 prompted the Church's lawyers to have the ruling sealed, although this was reversed. In the relatively few instances in which it has acknowledged Xenu, the Church has stated the story is a religious writing that can be seen as the equivalent of the Old Testament, in which miraculous events are described that are unlikely to have occurred in real life, assuming true meaning only after years of study. They complain of critics using it to paint the religion as a science fiction fantasy. Senior members of the Church of Scientology have several times publicly denied or minimized the importance of the Xenu story, but others have admitted its existence. In a BBC Panorama program that aired on May 14, 2007, senior Scientologist Tommy Davis interrupted when celebrity members are asked about Xenu, saying, "None of us know what you're talking about. It's loony. It's weird." In March 2009, Davis was interviewed by investigative journalist Nathan Bacca for KESQ-TV and was again asked about the OT3 texts. Davis told Bacca, "I'm familiar with the material," and called it the confidential scriptures of the Church. When John Carmichael, the president of the Church of Scientology of New York, was asked about the Xenu story in the September 9, 2007 edition of the Daily Telegraph, he said, "That's not what we believe." When asked directly about the Xenu story by Ted Koppel on ABC's Nightline, Scientology leader David Miscavige said that he was taking things Hubbard said out of context. However, in a 2006 interview with Rolling Stone, Mike Rinder, the director of the Church's Office of Special Affairs, said that it is not a story, it is an auditing level. When asked about the validity of the Xenu story, Religious Technology Center Director Warren McShane testified in a 1995 court case that the Church of Scientology receives a significant amount of its revenue from fixed donations paid by Scientologists to study the OT materials. McShane said that Hubbard's work may seem weird to those that have not yet completed the prior levels of coursework in Scientology. McShane said the story had never been secret, although maintaining there were nevertheless trade secrets contained in OT3. Notably, McShane discussed the details of the story at some length and specifically attributed the authorship of the story to Hubbard. Scientology has many graduated levels through which one can progress. Many who remain at lower levels in the Church are unaware of much of the space opera doctrines, which mostly begin at operating thetan level 3, or OT3. Because the information imparted to members is to be kept secret from others who have not attained that level, the member must publicly deny its existence when asked.